are recording. Here we go. So, welcome tonight, everyone, for our continuation of Outwitting the Devil. We are still reading a little bit about Napoleon Hill's journey to this point in writing this book. So, I'm going to pick up where we left off last week. As usual, I will read a little bit and then I will ask someone in the room to read as well. Please step up. It makes it more fun, makes it more enjoyable. No one wants to listen to my monotone voice all through the evening. Hello, April. How are you?
Hello, hello.
Love to see you here. All right, so I'm going to start where we left off. Again, I became fidgety inside. I was not happy. It became more obvious every day that no amount of money would ever make me happy. I could have written this about myself a few years ago, but when I took action by leaving a situation that, although financially rewarding, was no longer aligned with my personal mission, new doors of opportunity opened for me. It turned out to be the best decision of my professional life. Can you think of a time in your life when you made a difficult decision but knew it was the right one, even when others questioned you? So when we got to this point last week, we actually had some folks share. Betty, I think you were one of the ones that shared. And Toby Beth, I think you shared as well. At this point, when you make decisions to do something different, uh, people ask questions. They wonder what you're doing. Sometimes they think you're crazy and they give you negative feedback. Why are you doing this? And, sometimes we just have to get beyond that and realize that we are in control of our minds. And if we take control of our minds and make decisions after we perform our due diligence, and I always want to stress due diligence, we don't promote making decisions without any planning and thought. So if you're thinking about making a major move, such as a move in your career, as Napoleon is doing here, he had a good paying job. He was doing well, but he just decided it was time to move. Give that due diligence, consideration, do your research before you make that decision. In Napoleon's writing, he talks about decisiveness, being able to make a decision quickly is really, really important. And from my perspective, what that means to me is I need to be staying on top of everything that's going on that might interest me so that when an opportunity arises, I can make a decision based on the facts I already have. Now, in my military background, some of the training that we've received, oftentimes we spend a lot of time waiting to make a decision until we have all the information. And that could be a mistake. The rule is if you have 70% of the information available, that gives you enough information to make a decision, with that decision being successful, being weighed to your virtue, to your success. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to make decisions and make mistakes. But if you get at least 70% of the information, you can make a decision to move forward, and then you can adjust your plan or your actions accordingly as you move forward. When we get paralyzed with being perfect, and I just had this conversation with a coaching client this past week, we're trying to make sure everything is absolutely perfect before we make a decision. That causes you to miss the opportunity, right? So think about the 70% rule. That was during the late fall of 1923. I found myself stranded in Columbus, Ohio, without funds, and worse still, without a plan by which to work my way out of my difficulty. It was the first time in my life that I had actually been stranded because of lack of funds. Many times previously, I had found money to be rather shy, but never before had I failed to get what I needed for my personal conveniences. The experience stunned me. I seemed totally at sea as to what I could or should do. By the way, I think I failed to share. Did I fail to share?
Can you
Yeah.
put the book
Yes.
up so we can read?
Lynn, are you listening to me? That's what I just said, Lynn.
Oh,
All right. Can you
I
all
am
say
just
it now?
listening. Yes.
All right. Let me let somebody else in the room who just jumped in from South Africa. There she is. Get my screen right. Here we go. I thought of a dozen plans by which I might solve my problem, but dismissed them all as being either impractical or impossible of achievement. I felt like one who was lost in a jungle without a compass. Every attempt I made to work my way out brought me back to the original starting point. For nearly 2 months, I suffered with the worst of all human ailments, indecision. I knew the 17 principles of personal achievement, but what I did not know was how to apply them. Now, think about this for a minute. This is Napoleon Hill, who researched over 20 years the development of the science of personal achievement. He knew all of the principles, yet he was still struggling with how to apply them. So, if you've been studying the principles and you're trying to apply them, and trying to find a way to make it work, even the guy who wrote it was struggling with how do I apply these things. Without knowing, without knowing it, I was facing one of those emergencies of life through which Mr. Carnegie had told me men sometimes discover their other selves. My distress was so great that it never occurred to me to sit down and analyze its cause and seek its cure. The worst of all human ailments is indecision. The inability to make decisions really puts us, kind of freezes our ability to act. Have you ever felt paralyzed by indecision? Anybody in the room ever felt paralyzed by indecision? I certainly have. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This was the first major turning point in Napoleon Hill's life. His moving from job to job, remember, he constantly moved from job to job, seeking contentment in his own ideal professional life. Sounds like many people today. Sound like anybody in the room? Yeah, we've all been there, right? We move from one, we're always looking for greener grass. It's better on the other side. People who are seeking contentment in their jobs and lives, Hill's predicament was, by his own admission, self-inflicted. However, he found himself very much the same circumstances as someone today who has been negatively affected by the present economic situation. And every time I read this, whenever I read this type of this present economic situation, I read this book 10 years. The present economic situation wasn't perfect. It's still not perfect. It's probably never going to be perfect. Hill took advantage of his temporary defeat, using it as a spur to force himself into thought and analysis to find his other self. If you have been dealt a blow by economic circumstances, you too can use it as a lever and motivation to find your other self. So let's break just for a minute right there and let's have a little bit of conversation. Any comments on what we just read? Hello?
I guess what he's telling us that we need to look for the other self.
So, what is the other self?
I think that's your gut instinct that we don't like to listen to sometimes. I don't know if you can hear me, sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you fine. So, what's interesting is Napoleon talks about each one of us. We have two personalities within us. So obviously, when we look in the mirror,
Mhm,
we see ourselves,
mhm,
and we have that person who operates. I'll call it the conscious mind. We operate the way we operate. Our
mhm.
other self is the person deep inside that, when you get pushed to your limit, suddenly rises to the occasion.
Yep.
So personally, from my experience, I've nicknamed myself the Red F Kid. I was the guy who got a book report assignment 6 months in advance. And the night before the book report was due, I decided it was time to get to work, right? Because that big red F was flashing in front of my face. And if I didn't do something, I was going to pay the consequences. And I think oftentimes many of us rely on that other self to step up and take action. The challenge is, can you get your other self to go into action before you get to that stage? Myrna, you're
No,
saying no. No, give me
no,
some comments.
I mean, that's where, I mean, when you meet the other self, that's when you realize what you're made of. You know what I'm saying? You actually say to yourself, wow, I didn't even know this side of me. When you have to really step in and step out, when you got to own that voice of truth, yeah, that's a totally different vibe.
Yeah.
Totally
And
different.
yeah, it gives you a totally different type of energy, right? I mean, I remember my father telling me as a young man, he said, I knew exactly how to get you to do what I wanted you to do. I simply told you you couldn't do it. And many of us might be like that. If someone tells you you can't do something, it forces you to dig deeper to do what you've been told you couldn't do. Right. So I think that's your other self, the one that steps up, one that steps up when you don't want to be embarrassed, when you don't want to fail, when you don't want somebody to tell you what you can and can't do, when they challenge you to step up to the situation. Right. Anyone else have any comments? I see some folks not on camera. If you're here, please get on camera. If you're just taking notes, that's okay, I guess. Anyone else? I see you comment in this chats. No, we're good there. Okay. So let's go back to the share.
I think Lynn is trying to get,
Oh,
trying
go
to
ahead,
reach.
Len. Go ahead, Len.
I was just going to say, from my perspective, it's when we are totally in line with our body, mind, and what we want to do. It raises um, our energy. And I know some people have said different things, but it's how we raise our energy. It's to get to that end result, how we see that end result. And it's by being in line with everything that we do. That's how I see the other self.
I agree with Lynn.
Yeah, thank you, Len. Thank you, Stella. Interesting. I'm glad you made that comment because we can ignite our other self. And those of us who have been in the self-discipline camp, the intro video talks about the other self. So while most people might sleep in the morning until 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, those who are engaging with their other self are getting up earlier, setting up a routine, showing gratitude, writing in the journals, getting positive input from different sources, whether it be maybe watching a motivational video or reading a book, Outwitting the Devil. You could read, 10, 15, 20 minutes a day every morning to ignite your other self to step up before you pushed up against the wall. Right. So I think Napoleon Hill says, let's ignite this sooner. It's in there. We don't have to wait until we're under the gun. We can engage it before that and use it, leverage it to our advantage.
And Frank,
Yes, go ahead.
we've called it in the past, it's our I am, so our higher self. We just by being in a state of meditation or in the state of passion, if you're passionate about something, and you find your passion and it'll ignite your higher self.
Stella, could you add a little bit more about what I am stands for?
The I am it's God. It's being your God self. And in other words, your higher self, where you see life in a different light.
Different perspective, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and you get when you raise that book and you raise your energy, and you find things that raises your energy, then you get your insights are clearer and you follow your intuition, and it's a sure thing for you. It's your journey, your path. That's what we called it in the past.
Yeah.
From
So
my studies.
if you think about affirmations, and we
Mhm.
make comments like, I am a great coach.
Yep.
I am physically fit. You're making a statement about your personal other self. I am. You're suggesting to your subconscious mind, this is how I vision myself. I am. And you're raising yourself to a different level,
Mhm.
right? And
Yes.
if you haven't yet, I want to recommend to everybody in the room to record 5 or 6 minutes of affirmations for yourself. I recently recorded mine. I had some music put to the back of it, and I'll be happy to send it out, that recording, to all of you here in the group to know what I'm talking about. Now, mine is about 5.5 minutes, and I listen to it every morning and every evening. Morning when I get up, sometimes it's when I'm finishing my run. I'll make that the last thing I listen to, but certainly every evening before I go to bed. Because
Hey, Frank.
what you put into your mind at the very end before you go to sleep is what really connects with your subconscious. It'll chew on it and make it happen. Go ahead, April.
There's a free app called Parrot, like the bird, and you can record it on there, and it will loop it over and over again. So if you do happen to listen to it as you fall asleep, it just keeps looping.
And that works great as long as nobody's sleeping next to you, right, April?
Well, I have little earbuds I wear,
They're
so
little buds. There you go.
yeah.
Absolutely. My wife came running into the room. She was sitting on, I don't know, lanai the other night, and I had my recording going, and I don't put earbuds in because she's out there, I'm in here. She came running in. She said, Frank, there's somebody in the house. They're talking. I said, no, it's just what I'm listening to, hon. Just relax. It's all good. Don't worry. Anyone else have any comments? Lynn, did I see your hand go up?
Yes, you did. Just a little bit more about this other self. What I see is when you finally look in the mirror and you look at yourself and you go, yes, I know what my true purpose is in life. And you get totally in line with your health part of that. And yeah, you become your own predominant creator. And that's your other self to me. That's my perspective in that.
You know what? Who else is going to take charge of your life if you don't? Right?
Exactly.
Make a
Exactly.
decision. Make a decision. Tell me, Beth, I saw your hand go up in there.
So I think a lot of this, and I agree with what everybody is saying. I think a way to tie it all together, it really, the determining factor is what your mindset truly is. And we don't oftentimes know that we're about to experience an economic impact of proportions that are going to impact tomorrow for us. But if we take the stand and keep a positive mindset and keep our finger on the pulse of our true selves and our own destiny, using the positive affirmations, not to steal your words, Frank, but I do my positive affirmations. I haven't recorded them yet, but I write them over and over again, like a school teacher would tell you to do it, something if you were naughty. Um, I just over and over again. I have a notebook dedicated to it. But the
Been
other thing
there.
is to keep us in a more positive mindset. If your gut is telling you something, or you're getting that nod or that tap from God, ask yourself the question. If nothing changes, then nothing changes.
Yeah.
You are the one that's in control of all of that. So it's about how you set your mind up. And I agree with you 110 bazillion percent, Frank. What you input is what you output. the last thing you think about or hear as you're drifting off to sleep is oftentimes the confusing thoughts that wake you up in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning and set your day on fire, and you don't stop and take control of it. Those economic impacts are going to be harder for you to deal with if you don't practice positive mindset all the time and not wait
Absolutely.
for it to happen.
Absolutely. Toby Beth, thank you for that. Ivana, I see you. Are you at the hockey rink again?
Soccer, yeah. Um, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, you're spotty where you are. We just lost you. Nip,
Let me turn
nip.
my camera off. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so what I think we're all talking about finding that positive you, right? What if you are always the positive you and that other you is the one that's broken? What if it's the broken one that puts everything in action? You know, the one that's exhausted and you know, feels like it's all falling apart. What if that's the one? Is that the one that we should turn on sooner uh to get shit done? Or, you
She's
know,
quote
like we're
she's quoting my wife.
I am. But like it's, you know, think about it from that point of view. And I agree with the previous woman who was talking about mindset. But I, you know, a lot of people right now are not, you know, they're in affirmations, they're trying, they're always in their positive state, and until something comes down on them very hard, and that's when it all, you know, starts, that's when their survival begins. So how would you respond to that with the words of Napoleon Hill?
So Ivana, that's an interesting perspective. I don't know that I've ever heard that people spend most of their time in the positive perspective. They typically have to turn to the positive perspective, which is inside of them. But I think, regardless of what side you're on, if things are not going the way that you want them to go, then you have to reach inside to find the other self and see if there's an answer there. And I don't know that there is going to be an answer. If your other self is a negative perspective, to me, that would be really, really scary. And why would you feel that you would need to turn to the other perspective if you're always positive, everything's good? If you're not receiving the results you want, then my suspicion would be perhaps your plan to achieve what you want to achieve needs to be evaluated. Do you have the right plan? Anyone else have any comments about that?
Yeah.
Ivana, do you have a comment about that?
No, I'm going to let that marinate.
Okay. Yeah. I think if you're not achieving what you want to achieve and you think you've got a positive attitude and a great plan and it's still not working, Napoleon Hill says perhaps your plan isn't as good as you think it is. And maybe you need to address that. Go ahead, Len.
Also, maybe it needs some tweaking. You know how you said that sometimes we have to go back and we
Yes.
need to tweak it. So I would say it's probably a good plan that you have, because if it's something that you really, really, really want, and it's just that you need to go and tweak it. You just need, and then if it, you tweak it and it's still, and then you don't want it, well, then, yeah, okay, then go on another one. Isn't that when you have plan A, plan B, plan C? You know, you try those different things
What
until you
about
got it.
what about timing?
Hmm?
Huh?
Timing might be, you may have created a plan that was good for the time that you were creating it, and then something changes, and then you need to change. I used to when I was in the Marines, we used to call, yeah, you have to be like Gumby. If you those of you who are a little bit older, you remember a cartoon back in the day. It's called Gumby, and it was like an eraser, and it could bend all kinds of different directions, right? And so being Gumby is being flexible. Your plans are not engraved in granite. You're not hitting it with a chisel and hammer. You made out your plan based on 70% of the information that you felt was accurate and good. You made a good plan and you took action. You don't want to wait till it's perfect. You have to take action. Well, if you take action and it's not working, you need to readdress the plan. What did I miss? What could I do differently? Lynn, before I let you jump in, I want to let Natombi come in from South Africa. You have a comment, Natombi?
Thank you, and greetings.
I've seen you twice today. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm just, yeah, it's midnight, so I just forced myself to come because I wanted to listen to this. But yeah, greetings and thank you. It's good to be here. While we're talking about the other self, to me, the other self is the real important person here because you cannot give to the world what you do not have, right? Because if I don't love myself and I don't forgive myself, that's the first self, that's the first other self that you must deal with. Um, like loving yourself first and forgiving yourself first, because we tend to love, try to love other people, but we don't love ourselves, right? And this other self is this is the bigger me inside here. So whatever I do have, yes, I might try to pretend to be this and loving, but when I'm in my corner, I know I don't forgive myself, I don't love myself. It's not gonna work. It's just gonna be a temporary thing, right? So what I normally do, at first it becomes a rather weird. When I do the auto suggestions, the I look at myself and in the mirror while I'm doing, because I'm gonna do my auto suggestion and I do the gratefuls, I mean the gratitudes. Then I look at the mirror. I first send the love to myself. I send love to you, Ntombi. I love you. Like, yes, it will feel like, but it's gonna, like, it's gonna build in. Then I have that love. I love the self-love, because honestly, that's where it all starts. That's where it must start. Love yourself and give to the world that we have, because like I'm saying, you cannot give to the world that is something that you don't have. You must have love, you must have forgiveness, all those things. It must start on the other self, your other self, your higher self. So that's the foundation of all, loving yourself. Yeah, if you are, like, there are a lot of things that are happening in the world. You at work, we are angry, whatsoever, but then you'll have to go in that other self and forgive and release. Yes, you can forgive others, but forgive yourself first, love yourself first, and then you will be able to give to the world what you have inside. Yeah, so that's how I understand it. Thank you.
Nantombi, I love that, what you just said. If you have an empty cup, there's nothing to give, right? So you have to fill your own cup, and you have to begin by working on yourself before you can help other people. It's just like they say on the airplane, when the oxygen mask comes down, if you have an elderly person or a child next to you, help yourself first, then help them, because you can't help them if you don't help yourself first. So having self-love is really important. Thank you for sharing that, Natombi. It's such a strong, strong thing to recognize. We have to serve ourselves before we can serve other people. Go ahead, Lynn.
Okay, I agree with everything that was said, but I do have something that I feel that I need to share with everybody, because sometimes experience and from where we came from can add just a little bit more to what we're doing. I remember years ago, probably I say to Ivana, I just adore Ivana and I adore how she loves her family and she's raising her children and everything that she's doing. I'm even getting goosebumps as I'm saying this, Ivana. Okay. Now, one thing Stella did say about timing. Now I'm going to go back again when I was in a time where Ivana was with my children and that. I was always searching. And that's probably what I love so much about this. And I'm still in this searching and doing courses. I just love it. I love it. The growth we have in ourselves. I went to we had in Sudbury, and I think Stella would probably know who that is, an NLP guru here. Amazing. He traveled the world, and we had him right here in Sudbury. Can you believe it? We were so lucky. And somebody had said, "Why don't you go and see this NLP person. I was just felt that I was procrastinating all the time. And I just felt because I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that. I wanted to, franchise my business. I wanted to, and I could actually see all this stuff all over. And he said to me something that was so unbelievable that it stayed with me. He said that sometimes what happens is when you see yourself doing those things and you're not really doing it, it's not procrastination. What it is, it's the people around you whom you love. They're not ready to go with you. So therefore, what you do, it looks like you're procrastinating all the time to stay where you are. That was so profound for me because I see sometimes what Ivana's been going through. And I know I've been there. And I'm so happy where I am now. I'm extremely happy. But it sort of settled me in a little way because I knew at that time there was no way that my husband wanted to franchise. He couldn't see me bringing these huge stores that I had, all over the place. I saw it, but, and who knows, had I done it, where would I be today? I'm happy here. I adore my grandchildren. I enjoy, I have the life that I really love. So had I done that and my family wasn't ready to come with me, I would never have been happy. So I listened to that through. Interesting, eh? Anyway,
Interesting.
I just had to share that.
Very interesting. Thank you, Len. I appreciate that. Who would like to pick up on the reading as we go into the defeat is converted into victory? Someone, please raise your hands. Natombi, go ahead, my friend.
Defeat is converted into a victory. One afternoon, I reached a decision through which I found the way out of my difficulty. I had a feeling that I wanted to get out into the open spaces of the country where I could get a breath of fresh air and think. I began to walk and had gone 7 or 8 miles when I felt myself brought suddenly to a standstill. For several minutes, I stood there as if I had been glued to my tracks. Everything around me went dark. I could hear the loud sound of some form of energy which was vibrating at a very high rate. Then my nerves became quiet. My muscles relaxed and a great calmness came over me. The atmosphere began to clear, and as it did so, I received a command from within which came in the form of a thought, as near as I can describe it. The command was so clear and distinct that I could not misunderstand it. In substance, it said, "The time has come for you to complete the philosophy of achievement which you began at Carnegie's suggestion. Go back home at once and begin transferring the data you have gathered from your own mind to written manuscripts." My other self had awakened. For a few minutes, I was frightened. The experience was unlike any I had ever undergone before. I turned and walked rapidly until I reached home. As I approached the house, I saw my 3 little boys looking out of a window out of our house at our neighbor's children who were dressing a Christmas tree in the house next door. Then I recalled that it was Christmas Eve. Moreover, I recalled, with a feeling of deep distress such as I had never known before, that there would be no Christmas tree at our house. The look of disappointment on the faces of my children reminded me painfully of that fact. You will tell me when to stop, ne? I went into the house, sat down at my typewriter, and began at once to reduce to writing the discoveries I had made concerning the causes of success and failure. As I placed the first sheet of paper in the typewriter, I was interrupted by that same strange feeling which had come over me out in the country a few hours before, and this thought flashed into my mind. Your mission in life is to complete the world's first philosophy of individual achievement. You have been trying in vain to escape your task. each effort having brought you failure. You are seeking happiness. Learn this lesson once and forever, that you will find happiness only by helping others to find it. You have been a stubborn student. You had to be cured of your stubbornness through disappointment. Within a few years from now, the whole world will start through an experience which will place millions of people in need of the philosophy which you have been directed to complete. Your big opportunity to find happiness by rendering useful service will have come. Go to work and do not stop until you have completed and published the manuscripts which you have begun. I was conscious of having arrived at last at the end of life's rainbow, and I was happier.
Natombi, thank you so much. We're going to stop there for just a second. So, what stood out? What stood out to you in what we just heard in regard to service? Go ahead, Betty.
I was just going to say, was that his other self typing the words that he was preparing? I didn't think of service at that point, but yes, you need to serve others or help others achieve their goals in order for you to be successful, basically, is what I got out of that.
Yeah, it says, learn this lesson once and forever, that you will find happiness only by helping others to find it. And I think so often in our hectic world, we're chasing the almighty dollar. We're chasing the goals. We're chasing our personal success and satisfaction rather than focusing on helping others achieve what they want to achieve. And, this really stands out to me simply because there's another mentor of mine, Zig Ziglar, who simply says, if you help enough other people get what they want, you will have everything that you want. And I see Toby Beth mouthing the quote just as I'm saying it. Toby Beth is actually a coach with the Zig Ziglar Corporation. And, it's interesting. It's an interesting perspective. What we're taught to focus on is the complete opposite of what we should be focusing on. We're taught to focus on our own personal success rather than focusing on how we can serve others. Earl Nightingale makes a statement, and he says that the only reason that man, human, not just man or woman, is on this earth is to serve others. No other reason exists. We are humans. We help each other. And so if we focused on that rather than our own personal success, our success will come easier. I mean, we would be collaborating with other people. We'd be helping other people. And in turn, if you help other people, they help you, right? So anyone else have any thoughts about that? Go ahead, Betty.
So it's funny that you say that. As a loan officer, when I help lots of people get into their homes and I never set goals, my goal was just to help everyone. And I was extremely successful, made President's Club. And I guess that's where it all comes down to. I help the person get in the home, which then helps the realtors, helps the title companies. It goes around full circle.
Yeah. It's interesting because obviously you're in the lending business. I'm in the real estate business. I was in real estate for 27 years. And I during that real estate market crash of 06, 07, and 08, the coach that I hired to help me get through that had me focus on not finding people to sell to, but connecting with the people I had already served to see how I could serve them further. And in turn, because I showed that I cared and was trying to help them, they provided all of the referrals to business I needed to thrive during that market when so many people were going bankrupt. So it's interesting. It's an interesting perspective. I think I heard a quote today in my listening to one of my podcasts or one of my books. I'm not sure. In the Bible, it says, ask and you shall receive. Right. So if you need, serve others. And by serving others, you're asking for something in return. You're not expecting anything in return. But if you do that, people would want to help you. So it's a really interesting perspective. Anyone else have a comment about that? I see no hands. Who's going to step up to read? All right, Toby Beth, let me share the screen. I get to the right place. I'm working double screens now. I'm not really talented at this. So here we go. You got it, Toby Beth?
Yeah, my new glasses don't, but I certainly do. Um,
All right. Doubt makes its appearance. Go for it.
Doubt makes its appearance. The spell, if the experience may be so called, passed away. I began to write. Shortly thereafter, my reason suggested to me that I was embarking upon a fool's mission. The idea of a man who was down and almost out, presuming to write a philosophy of personal achievement, seemed so ludicrous that I laughed hilariously, perhaps scornfully. I squirmed in my chair, ran my fingers through my hair, and tried to create an alibi that would justify me in my own mind in taking the sheet of paper out of my typewriter before I had really begun to write. But the urge to continue was stronger than the desire to quit. I became reconciled to my task and went ahead. The urge to continue was stronger than the desire to quit. Remember that time when you wanted to quit, but something drove you to keep going? It may have been your other self. Looking backward now in the light of all that has happened, I can see that those minor experiences of adversity through which I had passed were among the most fortunate and profitable of all my experiences. They were blessings in disguise because they forced me to continue a work which finally brought me an opportunity to make myself more useful to the world than I might have been had I succeeded in any previous plan or purpose. For almost 3 months, I worked on those manuscripts, completing them during the early part of 1924. As soon as they had been completed, I felt myself again being lured by the desire to get back into the great American game of business. Succumbing to the lure, I purchased the Metropolitan Business College in Cleveland, Ohio, and began to lay plans for increasing its capacity. By the end of 1924, we had developed and expanded by adding new courses until we were doing a business nearly double the best previous record the school had ever known. Against the germ of discontentment began to make itself felt in my blood. Again, I knew I could not find happiness in that sort of endeavor. I turned the business over to my associates and went on the lecture platform, lecturing on the philosophy of achievement, to the organization of which I had devoted so many of my previous years. One night I was booked to lecture in Canton, Ohio. Fate, or whatever it is that seems sometimes to shape the destiny of men, no matter how hard they may try to battle against it, again stepped into the picture and brought me face to face with a painful experience. In my Canton audience sat Don R. Mellett, publisher of the Canton Daily News. Mr. Mellett became so thoroughly interested in the philosophy of individual achievement on which I had lectured that night that he invited me to come see him the following day. That visit resulted in a partnership agreement which was to have taken place on the 1st of the following January, when Mr. Mellett planned to resign as publisher of the Daily News, to take charge of the business and publishing of the philosophy on which I had been working. However, in July 1926, Mr. Mellett was murdered by Pat McDermott, an underworld character and a Canton, Ohio policeman, both of whom were sentenced to life imprisonment. He was murdered because he was exposing his newspaper hookup between the bootleggers and certain members of the Canton police force. The, the crime was one of the most shocking that the Prohibition era produced.
Let's
the
let's take a break there, Toby Beth. I know when we read like that, it's like, okay, when are you going to stop me, Frank? Come on, give me a break. So again, we're hearing a story about a man who has done all of this research, and his mission is to create this philosophy or this science of personal achievement to help other people, as he was committed to Andrew Carnegie to do to complete that mission. But look at all the struggles that he was going through and all the time he had invested, and he still hadn't done what needed to be done. And so something stopped him in his tracks on an 8-mile walk and challenged him to say, what are you doing? Why aren't you completing the mission that you set out on? What's stopping you? Your answer is there. And so again, we're still talking about the other self. Inside of us, every one of us in this room right now has had a conversation with our other self, whether it be a dream that we were trying to pursue that we gave up on because we thought it was unachievable. And during a walk, maybe during an early morning wake up, and all of a sudden your mind is churning, and this gut feeling is, why am I here and not doing, not pursuing, not achieving my dream? And then responding to that urge from your other self to say, take action, have faith, be committed, move forward. Did anything stand out in that reading as Toby Beth was going through that to anybody in the room? What struck you? Toby Beth, what struck you?
Thank you for asking. So, the part about where he started doubting himself and he was looking to take the paper out of the typewriter, that is classified as imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? What am I doing? Can I actually do this? Will people receive it? Whatever those myriad of emotions are, it's that self-doubt and self-questioning of whether or not you're worthy. Am I good enough? The imposter
Yeah.
syndrome.
Yeah, I love, we started out earlier this evening with the statement from Stella, I am, right? And that's a statement, it's an affirmation, I am. But what about the other side? It's, who am I? Right? And that's what Toby Beth was just sharing. Who am I to think that I'm qualified to present this information, to do these things? Here I am bouncing from job to job. I can't seem to stay in the same place at the same time. I'm failing. I'm struggling. I have no faith in myself. Who am I to put out this philosophy of success? And that's the imposter syndrome. Everyone in this room is someone who has something to offer. So, of course, my challenge is what do you have to offer? And what are you doing about it? What's holding you back? I gave a presentation on Monday night to a business networking group, and my presentation was the big four and the magic sauce. And the big four is Napoleon Hill's definiteness of purpose, the Mastermind Alliance, going the extra mile, applied faith. Napoleon Hill in his writing says, if you only did these four things, you would bury your competition. And then I added the magic sauce, which for me is the principle of persistence, being able to pursue and push through temporary failure. And then I talked about the 6 major fears, the 6 ghosts of fear: the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of losing a loved one or a relationship, the fear of old age, the fear of ill health, and the fear of death. Those are the 6 ghosts of fear, and they stop us. Not all of them, maybe, certainly some of them stop us from taking action. And whenever I share that part of my presentation, I think about Kentucky Fried Chicken. Colonel Sanders started Kentucky Fried Chicken. He was 72 years old. And in that day, if you were more than 40 or 50 years old, you were supposed to retire. You're done. It's over. And at 72, he restructured his life and created a restaurant that's still on many corners in America today. Right. So, it's going into action. It's believing in yourself and being able to move forward. But what I found amazing as I was reading this book again is this whole first section is about his struggles. We haven't even gotten into the conversation with the devil yet. We're still talking about all the things. He's sharing this for us to know that even he who was tasked for putting together this philosophy of success was struggling himself. I think that's really important to recognize, because if we're studying this material, we need to understand that nobody, not even the author, is perfect. We don't have all the answers. Go ahead, Toby Beth.
It humanizes him. It makes it more authentic when the writer can identify with what most other people already think in their minds about success
Yes,
and
because
the fear of success.
so often we hear people, spouting how great they are. I call them chest pounders, right? Look at me, I did all these things, and they don't talk about the struggles. They just talk about the successes, and that gives an improper perspective of what it means to become success. Right? It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of temporary failures. It's not, you don't become a success overnight. Overnight's like 12, 20, 15, 30 years, whatever. It takes a lot of time to,
Normalization.
exactly,
Sorry,
exactly. Go ahead, Lane.
normalization.
I'm wondering if I'm ahead of my time again. Sometimes I do that often. But anyways, let me know, Frank. I'm wondering if right now is a time, or maybe we did talk about it and I missed it, you know, when this book was published, and not published, when he wrote it, the year he wrote it, and when it got published and why it didn't get published till then. Is it a good time to talk about it, or
Yeah,
should?
absolutely. Absolutely is. So this book was written before his first publication of the Laws of Success. So he's telling you the story right here, what made him move forward to write the Laws of Success. And the Laws of Success is double the size of the Bible. All right. It's like 4 different volumes of the laws that he created through interviewing over 500 businessmen in that era about their success and how they got there. That was his initial mission, as assigned by Andrew Carnegie. He wrote this book as he was struggling. He was trying to explain what he was going through. I'm going to stop the share for a minute here. So he's telling the story of how he actually got to write the original volume of the Law of Success. His wife would not allow him to publish this book, Outwitting the Devil.
What
Guys,
made you start
guys,
writing?
we're in 1925 when he's writing this book, right? Somewhere in that era. And to talk about anything about the devil in that era was like taboo. So his wife actually wouldn't let him. This book didn't get published. I don't think it got published until like the 1980s, maybe the mid 1980s. I could probably look at that real quick here in his book. But at the end of the day, it didn't get published until after he had died.
And his wife, after she passed away too.
After she passed away,
She
exactly.
didn't want this out there.
She didn't want it out there for fear of what it was going to do to him and her and the family, right? They were worried about being judged. I'm trying to find it. You can never find it when you want to
Copyright
find
is
it.
2011.
2011, copyright on this book, 2011, right? So at the end of the day, this was discovered in the archives. And Sharon Lecter, if I remember right, the version we're reading was the first person to bring this to the public eye. And it's become almost as popular as Think and Grow Rich because of the conversations, because of the content, because the devil is not the devil that we perceive. The devil are those fears that I just talked about. It's those things that stop us from doing the stuff that we should be doing. So his conversation, as we get there, we start getting into the conversation, the interview with the devil's telling Hill what he looks for to take control of people. 98% of the population. He's looking for drifters, and we'll get there. But great question, Lynn. When was this book written? Actually, before the others. Didn't get published until much later. Right? Guys, I've got 7:57, so I'm just going to go into open conversation. Who has comments, something to add, questions from what we read so far this evening? Anything stand out in particular? Yolena, you've been quiet for me this evening. You usually speak up. Yolena's in Ohio. It's probably colder for her right now. There she is. How are you,
My
Yolena?
dogs have been acting weird up today, so
It's all good. It's all good. Anything stand out to you tonight, Yolena?
um, I
I
don't
lost. There you are. There you go.
I don't know. I like the conversations that we were having or others were having. But I don't think I have anything to add at the moment.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
hmm
Go ahead, Len.
2 minutes left. My perspective on this whole thing, because I've been studying it also in the other group, and I found that at the beginning, it was like, really? Oh my God. It was like, I just, I got goosebumps even explaining it here to everybody here. My perspective on that, it just opened my mind, and I thought, oh my God, this book really needs to come out there, especially now. And the more you're going to get into it, I got goosebumps just telling you this, the more you're going to listen. And maybe you don't really have questions right now because sometimes it's really hard to grasp. And I always tell people, do it in a group, because when you read it by yourself, you're going to miss so
Mm-hmm.
much, so
Mm-hmm.
much. And all I want to share is, if you don't really have questions right now, or if you don't, because you're just kind of going, really? You're grasping it from within. But eventually, as you go into it, it's going to be, wow. And you will, it's going to shift your mind. It really, really, really will. It shifted mine. And yeah, it's, you're going to see it totally. You're going to see the world. You're going to see the people from a different perspective. That's all I have to share.
Thank you for that, Lynn. And I couldn't agree with you more. It opens our minds, and having conversations in a mastermind group such as what we have here tonight, it gives us an opportunity. And I can see the looks on people's faces as we're going through these chapters, and I can read the body language and the facial expressions of intention and really listening and reading and trying to digest the message. And I agree 100% that you need to read it again and digest a message with a highlighter and a pen and make notes to yourself and try to connect it. I try to connect it to what we're experiencing today. And when I start to connect the dots to what we're experiencing today in a book that was written in the 1920s, it's amazing to me that we're still struggling with the same circumstances each and every single day, right? And I would challenge everybody. So I'm going to share this right now because I do it as part of my business growing actions. Share this information. Talk to people about it. Hey, have you ever read this book? It's kind of a weird book, but boy, is it impactful. Share it with other people, because that's how we get people to understand how we could perhaps change the world by having a different perspective. As Len put it, it's a different perspective. Myrna, I think I heard you coming online. Did you have something to add?
Oh, I was just adding that there is nothing new under the sun, so that's why it's so relatable. Thank
Yeah,
you.
there is nothing new. We've been here before. We will be here again. And the only thing that will hold us together is people like you who come to something like this on a Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 o'clock to expand your mind. We don't need to change it. We just want to expand your perspective and pick something there that you pick up that you can share with others to do to help me inspire and to positively impact the lives of others by helping them to figure out what their personal and professional goals are and help them achieve them. Because everything's possible. As Hill says, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Let's help make it happen, right? So with that, guys, I want to thank you again this evening. I
Thank
will
you,
see
Frank.
you next week. The replay will be put up on my YouTube channel tomorrow. Please, the link that you have to come to this meeting, invite a friend. This is nothing. There's no magic power here. Just invite a friend. Bring them on in. Let's expand the conversation. And again, the replay will be out there for you tomorrow. Some of you are taking notes. That's phenomenal. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Good evening. Good night.
Thank you.